Cheer up, Bobby. Except for the cowboy and the man who straps the bull's genitals, there's nobody more important than the friend cheering in the stands.
Oh, hey.
Misinformation.
After 15 years of hiatus, King of the Hill is coming back for a season 14 on Hulu. It's like a retired Hank reboot, and I'm pretty damn excited.
Oh, wow. I'm getting a hug. Okay. Emotional.
For those who may be too young or just never watched the original King of the Hill, the show follows the Hill family, Hank Hill, Peggy Hill, and Bobby Hill, their son, in Arlen, Texas. Hank is a stoic man's man, and his whole character is just kind of generally uncomfortable with anything that isn't the barest superficial bones of masculinity, and he finds it very difficult to cope with the changes that are occurring around him at the turn of the 21st century when this show obviously launched, and it's fun to watch. Who among us doesn't know a deeply insecure, trying way too hard to, make sure no one sees them as anything but a man's type of man.
I love a dance with clear rules and instructions.
But Hank is a good person with a strong moral compass. So even though the shifting cultural landscape can often make Hank feel uncomfortable or strain relations with his wife Peggy or his son Bobby, he always ends up choosing, ultimately, the path of acceptance and love, even when toxic Texan masculinity around him tells him not to.
Are we all gender?
Throughout the original show, Hank is forced to confront the misgivings he has around independent women in his life, or the kooky gender nonconformity of his son Bobby, or sexual promiscuities of his niece, Luann.
Well, I need a window seat because this flower is wilting.
Oh, Lord. All right, everyone in the car, now, go, 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 go.
It's usually a bumpy ride for him in most episodes, but the overall point of the show is to illustrate how just doing life necessitates dealing with other people, despite our little feelings that we might have about the way others behave. And the show always kind of undergirds that general point with the fact that it's a heck of a lot easier to deal with people, that all of the conflicts, many of the conflicts in the show, could have, never happened at all if everyone would have just been a little nicer to each other, All it takes is just letting people be people is kind of the point that the show is trying to make. Accept others as having a right to exist on the planet just as much as you do.
Okay, you can stay.
So the season 14 trailer, like any trailer, has lots of clever sound bites taken out of the show, meant to kind of fuel excitement, and it worked. That's what has me excited.
It's been hard with you and Peggy gone, Hank. I might have let myself go a little.
This video is going to be pretty short. I don't have that long of a script written out, but that's just going to be because, it's about a trailer, and this video is also a little bit of a trailer for the future King of the Hill episodes that I'll probably do about the new season after it comes out in August. The trailer teases a lot of the themes and plot elements that we can expect in the upcoming season. And it looks like we'll be dealing with themes of gender, drugs, aging boomers, and hilariously, craft beer.
Nowadays, beer is fruitier, bolder, more assertive.
I've been drinking beer for 40 years, and I never wished once that it tasted more like fruit.
I'm excited to dive into the deeper messages and themes that this season might explore based on, the sound bites from this trailer. And I'll make, those future videos hopefully when the time comes, but what does the trailer reveal? What can we expect? What are we looking forward to? What is exciting for it, to me specifically, from the trailer specifically, is that the writers seem to be going for it a lot more, in a more intense way, I guess you could say, this time around.
Huh. Okay. Is that a...
Don't worry, they're both all gender.
The original show came out during the Bush era.
I want you all to know.
And therefore, it's also dealing with a family that is supposed to be a maybe centrist, slightly more conservative Texas, basic family in that era of politics at that time. So I think a lot of the messaging on the show, knowing that many of their viewers are lefty and the messaging on the show is relatively leftist, but the messaging is a little subtle in the original show because they don't want to scare away a portion of their audience that is being coaxed in by the dressings of Texas and manliness, and of course
Propane and propane accessories.
Okay, all right.
any attentive viewer of the show would understand that the messaging, that it is like a pretty lefty show based on its narratives and the morals of certain episodes. But given the nature of the characters, even though it has a certain ideology, the Southern characters bring in a certain amount of audience members who might be a little more right-wing than other viewers, who might be there a little bit more for the messaging. And that's kind of part of what made this show genius originally, is it had that broader audience, it had the ability to potentially change people's minds. If they were a little bit more to the right, they can identify with Hank and watch Hank go through the episodes where he learns that, maybe his masculinity is not serving him or his loved ones, as he might think it would or should.
I present you young Master Robert.
Oh my God.
So I'm very curious where the show will go now and how much effort they're going to put into the subtlety this time. My hope is that they'll still maintain somewhat of the subtlety to keep that larger audience attraction. Given that the show initially released during a pretty big time for jingoism and xenophobia and conservatism in the US, and given that it is now coming out for its reboot, Hank is retired now, Bobby's grown up now, season in another xenophobic and conservative era in American politics. Cue sirens. Feels like weirdly good timing as I reach this part of the script. So because the show originally came out in one type of era, it's now coming out again in a similar era, but I'm holding my breath that the show still has a similarly wide reach as it originally did, and hopefully can help change the minds of more people maybe than it originally did. I don't know. Fingers crossed, right? And for anyone who might not remember or was too young, I'm not making it up when I, reference the deeply xenophobic era that the show originally came out in. I was growing up during that period, but I remember it as pretty deeply racist. I know it feels that way now too, and it is. But you gotta remember that, after 2001, it was just such a sudden shift of draconian policies against citizens and immigrants. I mean, airport security, and we think, airport security is kind of a weird touchstone for pointing out overreach and racism from the state, capital S. And I guess good that we have a realm where it's easy to identify problems with state policing so easily and in a format that annoys everyone so totally. But, it didn't exist. Airport security didn't exist before about 2001. And then it did exist, and then it became very intense. They started profiling people who looked like they could be Arab in any way. And for a lot of that time, I was in high school. I'm a hairy little Greek guy. In high school, I was a kid who grew a beard during the summer because the teachers couldn't make me shave it during the summer. But the summer is also when you might do family trips and visit family. We didn't live super close to family, so that would mean getting on planes. And every time I had a beard, I would get randomly selected for a special pat down. And I did look like I was much more of an adult Arab man when I was 15 with a beard in an airport. But that was a very scary thing and became easily recognizable even to a kid at the time that this was a little screwed up. Why? What are the odds? Why am I getting selected? It seems astronomical that the random selection would hit every single time I have a beard. when I'm in an airport? You know, that's the sort of like overt profiling time that we lived in, where it was like, even to, you know, a relatively like dumb 15-year-old kid, it was still pretty palpable. The xenophobia, that is.
Bobby wants to bring that new girl over for dinner.
The vegan? What the hell am I supposed to feed her?
Can't we just put some grass in a bowl?
My point being that even though our government is definitely much scarier now than it was then, this show still came out at a time when you'd think it would have failed, based on these very conservative and bigoted shifts in culture. And now that we're experiencing a time, especially a time where people are so worried about their kids and their kids' sexuality, and that is now built into, you know, this is our first wave of government action against people is going to be against immigrants, and the next wave they're very clearly setting up to make it against kids and trans kids and then queer kids and of course then trans and queer adults after that, and it'll not be good out there. But this show, I feel like, deals with a lot of the discomfort of weird gender stuff with kids. Gender is fluid. It isn't really real. It's a construct, and kids are figuring out the boundaries of that construct, figuring out whether those boundaries work for them as they're growing up. And King of the Hill is a show that explores that quite a bit. And I hope they do that even more so, which they definitely teased in the trailer. But my hope is they don't try to sugarcoat anything out of fear, but really go for it in a similar way that they would have, you know, subtly, but, you know, not without teeth.
Oh, please, everyone avoid the nacho. Oi! Oi!
It's a show that pushes for acceptance and understanding, and it was a success. And maybe it had a positive effect on the American psyche then, and hopefully, maybe it will this time around too.
Honey, you do not need to get up at the crack of dawn every morning.
Peggy, I didn't retire to sleep my life away like some Nepo baby.
And at the very least, I'm very excited to watch some goofy Hank Hill moments. And if the show reboot sucks, I'll be back here saying so, at least because I made this video, so I'll be kind of miffed that it wasn't very good. But we're hoping there will be some real meat for us to dig into in these new episodes. So stay tuned for that. And for now, you know, just look at my face as I awkwardly look into yours for the end of this video. Woo-hoo. I can't see my legs, but they're wobbling.